The Accidental President Part 8. The Gathering Shadows. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. The victory at the Eastern Front had been hard-won, but as Joshua Odum surveyed the latest reports, he knew that the war was far from over. General Adisa Kalu, despite his recent setbacks, was not a man to accept defeat lightly. The battle for Nigeria's future had only just begun, and Kalu's next move was likely to be even more dangerous. Joshua sat in the command center, surrounded by his closest advisors, including Adaora, who was tirelessly coordinating intelligence and military efforts. The atmosphere was tense. The exhaustion of the war was beginning to take its toll on everyone. Joshua could feel the weight of leadership pressing down on him more heavily than ever before. Kalu has been unusually quiet since the battle, Adaora said, breaking the silence. Her voice was measured, but Joshua could sense the concern beneath it. He's regrouping, but our scouts report that his forces are engaging in smaller, more covert operations, sabotage, guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare. It's clear he's changing his approach. Joshua nodded, his brow furrowed as he considered the implications. Kalu knows he can't win in a direct confrontation, so he's trying to weaken us from within. He wants to sow fear and chaos, make us turn on each other. We need to be vigilant. If we let our guard down, even for a moment, he'll exploit it. Adaora leaned forward, her expression serious. There's something else. Our intelligence has picked up chatter about a potential assassination plot. Kalu might be targeting key figures in our administration to destabilize the government. If he succeeds, it could cause a crisis of confidence, especially among our allies. Joshua's heart sank at the news. He had suspected that Kalu would resort to desperate measures, but the idea of assassination within his own ranks was chilling. We need to act quickly. Double the security for all high-ranking officials. I want a full investigation into this plot. Find out who Kalu is targeting and eliminate the threat before it can do any damage. Adaora nodded, already making notes on her tablet. I'll coordinate with our intelligence and security teams. We'll need to move fast. As Adaora left to carry out his orders, Joshua sat back in his chair, his thoughts racing. The war was entering a new, more dangerous phase. Kalu's shift to unconventional tactics meant that the battle would no longer be confined to the front lines. It would be fought in the shadows, in the hearts and minds of the people. And that was a battlefield where the stakes were even higher. Setting: Kalu's hidden base, Nigeria. General Adisa Kalu paced the dimly lit room, his mind a whirlwind of plans and contingencies. The defeat at the Eastern Front had been a bitter pill to swallow, but Kalu was far from finished. He had fought too long and too hard to let Joshua Odum and his allies take everything from him. If he couldn't win the war through conventional means, he would turn to other methods that would break Joshua from the inside out. Kalu stopped at a table covered in maps and documents. He had already begun deploying small units to engage in guerrilla warfare, striking at supply lines, communication hubs, and any other targets that could disrupt Joshua's operations. But he knew that these attacks, while effective, wouldn't be enough on their own. He needed something more, something that would shatter Joshua's image and undermine his authority. General Olatunji said, stepping into the room. His voice was low, his tone respectful but urgent. Our operatives have confirmed that the propaganda campaign is ready to launch. The documents we uncovered from the old archives. They could be the key to discrediting Odum once and for all. Kalu's eyes gleamed with a dark satisfaction. The documents Olatunji referred to were a treasure trove of damning information. Records from the Nigerian Civil War that implicated Joshua Odum's father, General Matthew Odum, in a brutal massacre that had left hundreds of civilians dead. It was an event that had been buried deep in the past, but Kalu intended to drag it back into the light. Good, Kalu replied, his voice cold. Release the documents to the media. Let the people see the truth about their so-called savior. Joshua Odum isn't the hero he pretends to be. He's the son of a murderer, and the blood of innocents is on his hands. Olatunji hesitated, sensing the magnitude of what they were about to unleash. General, this could cause widespread unrest. If the people believed that Joshua's family was involved in war crimes, it could lead to chaos, especially among those who have been loyal to him. Exactly, Kalu said, a cruel smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Odum's strength comes from the people's trust. If we can destroy that trust, we can destroy him. Let the people see the truth, and watch how quickly they turn on him. Olatunji nodded, understanding the strategy but still feeling uneasy about the consequences. And the assassination plot. Kalu's expression darkened. Proceed as planned. Target key officials. People close to Odum. Make it look like internal betrayal. We need to create confusion, make Odum doubt those around him. If we can make him paranoid, it will weaken his leadership. With that, Olatunji left to carry out Kalu's orders, leaving the general alone with his thoughts. Kalu knew that he was walking a dangerous line, one that could either lead to his ultimate victory or his complete downfall. But he had no other choice. Joshua Odum had taken everything from him, and Kalu was determined to see him brought to his knees. This war is far from over, Kalu muttered to himself, his voice a low growl. And by the time I'm finished, Odum will wish he had never challenged me. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. Joshua Odum stood in front of the large windows of his office, staring out at the city of Abuja. The night was quiet, but Joshua's mind was anything but. The weight of the war, the constant pressure to lead and protect his people, was beginning to take its toll. He had fought so hard to bring the country back from the brink, but now it seemed that the past was catching up with him. Adorora entered the room, her expression grim. Joshua, there's something you need to see. The media has just released documents. Documents that implicate your father in a massacre during the Nigerian Civil War. It's already spreading like wildfire. Joshua felt a cold knot form in his stomach as he took the tablet Adorora handed him. The screen displayed a series of headlines, all focused on the same story: the massacre at Asaba, where General Matthew Odum had allegedly ordered the execution of hundreds of civilians suspected of supporting the Biafran forces. Joshua's hands trembled slightly as he read the details. The documents were damning. Military orders signed by his father, eyewitness accounts, even photographs of the aftermath. It was a brutal reminder of the dark history that had shaped Nigeria, a history that Joshua had hoped to move beyond. This is Kalu's doing, Joshua said quietly, his voice strained. He's using the past to destroy me, to turn the people against me. Adorora nodded, her expression sympathetic but determined. He's trying to undermine your legitimacy, to make you out as the heir to a legacy of violence and oppression. But we can fight this, Joshua. We need to be transparent with the people, to show them that you're not your father, that you're fighting for a better future for Nigeria. Joshua sighed, his heart heavy with the weight of his father's sins. I've always known that my father was a controversial figure, but I never imagined it would come to this. I thought I could leave that part of my history behind. Adorora placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. The past is a part of who we are, Joshua, but it doesn't define us. You've fought for justice, for unity, for the future of this country. The people need to see that. They need to know that you're different, that you're leading them toward a brighter future. Joshua nodded, though the burden of his father's legacy weighed heavily on him. We'll need to address this head on. I'll speak to the nation, acknowledge the truth, and make it clear that I'm committed to justice and reconciliation. But we also need to prepare for the fallout. Kalu will use this to fuel division and dissent. Adorora agreed. We'll strengthen our communication efforts, reach out to community leaders, and work to keep the peace. But we also need to be on high alert. Kalu's not going to stop at propaganda. He'll use this as cover for more direct attacks. Joshua's thoughts turned to the assassination plot that Adorora had uncovered. Kalu was not only attacking his character but also targeting the people closest to him. The danger was growing with each passing day, and Joshua knew that he had to act quickly to protect his government and maintain stability. Double the security for all key officials, Joshua ordered. We can't afford to lose anyone to Kalu's schemes. And I want a full investigation into anyone who might be working with him. We need to root out any traitors before they can do any more damage. Adorora nodded, already making arrangements. We'll get through this, Joshua. Kalu's trying to break you, but we're stronger than that. We've faced worse, and we've come out on top. Joshua managed a small, grateful smile. Thank you, Adorora. I don't know what I'd do without you. Adorora returned the smile, but her eyes were serious. We're in this together, Joshua. We'll get through this. Nigeria will get through this. As she left to carry out his orders, Joshua turned back to the window, his thoughts heavy with the weight of history. The revelation about his father's involvement in the massacre at Asaba was a blow, not just to his personal sense of identity, but to his entire campaign to unite and rebuild Nigeria. It was a stark reminder that the past could never be fully escaped, and that the scars of history were still fresh in the minds of many. But Joshua knew that he couldn't allow Kalu to use this revelation to tear apart everything he had worked for. He had to confront this dark chapter of his family's history head-on, to show the people that he was committed to a different path. The war was not just a physical battle. It was a battle for the soul of Nigeria, for its future and for its ability to heal from the wounds of the past. Setting: the streets of Lagos. While Joshua grappled with the revelation of his father's past, Kalu's forces were already moving to execute their next phase of destabilization. Lagos, the economic heart of Nigeria, was now the target. With its bustling markets, sprawling industries, and dense population, it was the nerve center of the country. If Lagos fell, so too would Nigeria's economy, and with it, the hope for a stable future. Lagos had remained relatively untouched by the war's worst violence, serving as a refuge for those displaced by the conflict. But now, that fragile peace was under threat. Kalu's operatives, embedded within the city, had begun a campaign of sabotage, targeting power grids, communication lines, and transportation hubs. They aimed to plunge Lagos into chaos, to sow fear and uncertainty that would weaken Joshua's control. In the heart of the city, chaos was beginning to spread. Blackouts plunged neighborhoods into darkness, disrupting businesses and leaving residents fearful of what might come next. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by Kalu's propaganda machine, which painted Joshua as a leader unable to protect the very heart of the nation. Lagos, the city that had once been a beacon of hope, was now a city under siege, not by a conventional army, but by the shadows of fear and uncertainty. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. In Abuja, Joshua was quickly informed of the situation in Lagos. The reports were grim. Riots were breaking out in some neighborhoods, the economy was beginning to stutter, and Kalu's propaganda was fueling anti-government sentiment. The threat to Lagos was not just military. It was a psychological assault designed to weaken the very foundation of Nigeria's stability. Adorora, we need to act quickly, Joshua said as he reviewed the reports. If Lagos falls into chaos, the entire country could follow. Kalu is trying to tear out the heart of Nigeria. He wants to destroy our economy, break the will of the people, and make them lose faith in our ability to lead. Adorora, who had been working tirelessly to coordinate their response, nodded in agreement. We need to regain control of the situation in Lagos. We need to show the people that we can protect them, that we can restore order. But we also need to address the root of the problem: Kalu's operatives and his propaganda network. If we don't stop them, this chaos will only spread. Joshua thought for a moment, his mind racing. We'll deploy additional security forces to key areas in Lagos: power stations, communication hubs, and major transportation routes. We need to protect the infrastructure that keeps the city running. But we also need to win back the hearts and minds of the people. Adorora quickly began coordinating the deployment of troops and security forces. I'll make sure our forces are ready to respond to any threats. But we also need to counter Kalu's propaganda. We need to get our message out there, to reassure the people that we're in control, that we're fighting for them. Joshua nodded. We'll use every platform we have: radio, television, social media. We need to be transparent, to show the people that we're aware of what's happening and that we're doing everything in our power to protect them. We'll also reach out to community leaders in Lagos. They can help calm the situation and counter Kalu's lies. As Adorora left to implement the plan, Joshua felt the weight of the responsibility bearing down on him once more. The battle for Lagos was about more than just maintaining control of the city. It was about preserving the very idea of a united Nigeria, one that could overcome its past and build a brighter future. Setting: Kalu's hidden base, Nigeria. Meanwhile, Kalu watched the chaos unfolding in Lagos with a sense of satisfaction. His plan was working. The heart of Nigeria's economy was beginning to falter, and with it, Joshua's credibility. The more the people suffered, the more they would turn against Joshua, blaming him for their pain and hardship. General, the situation in Lagos is escalating as planned, Olatunji reported. The blackouts, the sabotage, it's all contributing to the growing unrest. And with the revelation about Joshua's father, the people are beginning to question his leadership. Kalu nodded, his expression one of cold calculation. Good. The more unstable Lagos becomes, the harder it will be for Odum to maintain control. And once Lagos falls, the rest of the country will follow. Odum will be seen as weak, unable to protect the people. That's when we'll strike the final blow. Olatunji hesitated for a moment before speaking again. General, if I may ask, what is the final blow? We've destabilized Lagos, but what's the end game? Kalu's smile was thin, predatory. The final blow is simple, Olatunji. We take Lagos. We seize control of the city, its economy, its infrastructure. Once we hold Lagos, we hold the key to Nigeria. Without Lagos, Odum's government will crumble. And when it does, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. Olatunji nodded, understanding the gravity of what Kalu was proposing. A direct assault on Lagos would be a bold, risky move, but it could also be decisive. If Kalu succeeded, it would be the end of Joshua Odum's campaign and the beginning of a new era, one where Kalu held absolute power. When will we launch the assault? Olatunji asked. Kalu's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Soon. Let the chaos continue to build for a few more days. Let Odum struggle to maintain control, to keep the people from turning on him. And when the time is right, when Lagos is on the brink of collapse, we'll move in and take what's ours. Setting: the streets of Lagos. As the days passed, the situation in Lagos continued to deteriorate. The city was teetering on the edge, with widespread power outages, disruptions to transportation, and a growing sense of fear among the population. Kalu's operatives were fanning the flames, spreading rumors and misinformation that further eroded trust in Joshua's government. But amid the chaos, there were also signs of hope. Community leaders, religious figures, and ordinary citizens began to step up, working together to maintain order and provide for those in need. They spoke out against the violence and the lies, urging their fellow Lagosians to remain calm and united. Joshua's message, spread through every available channel, began to take hold. He spoke directly to the people, acknowledging the challenges they faced and promising that his government would do everything in its power to restore order and protect them. "We are one nation, one people," Joshua declared in a televised address. "We have faced darkness before, and we have always come through stronger. Do not let fear and division tear us apart. We are fighting for a future where all Nigerians can live in peace and prosperity. I will not abandon you, and together, we will overcome this challenge." The response was immediate. Across Lagos, people began to organize, to resist the forces that sought to tear their city apart. Joshua's words resonated with those who still believed in the possibility of a better Nigeria, and they were determined to stand firm in the face of Kalu's terror. But even as the people rallied, Joshua knew that the battle for Lagos was far from over. Kalu was still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike. The question was not if, but when. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. Back in Abuja, Joshua and Adaora were working around the clock to stabilize the situation in Lagos. The intelligence reports were mixed. There were signs of hope, but also indications that Kalu was preparing for something bigger, something that could tip the balance. "Joshua, we've received new intel," Adaora said, entering the command center with a grim expression. "Kalu's forces are mobilizing near Lagos. It looks like he's preparing for a full-scale assault on the city." Joshua's heart skipped a beat. The idea of Lagos falling into Kalu's hands was unthinkable. It would be a catastrophe, not just for the city, but for the entire country. But he knew that this was the battle they had been preparing for, the moment that would decide the future of Nigeria. "We need to move fast," Joshua said, his voice filled with determination. "Get all available forces ready to defend Lagos. We can't let Kalu take the city. If he does, everything we've fought for will be lost." Adaora nodded, already issuing orders. "I'll coordinate with our commanders in Lagos to ensure that all defenses are reinforced. We'll need to secure key infrastructure, including the ports, power stations, and communication hubs. If Kalu is planning to assault the city, he'll target these areas first to cripple our ability to fight back." Joshua knew that the upcoming battle would be one of the most difficult they had faced. Kalu had shown that he was willing to do whatever it took to win, and now, he was aiming for the heart of Nigeria. But Joshua was resolute. He couldn't afford to let Kalu's terror campaign succeed, not when so much was at stake. "Prepare the civilian population," Joshua added. "We need to minimize casualties and ensure that they have access to safe zones. This battle isn't just about military strength. It's about protecting the people who depend on us." Adaora nodded. "I'll coordinate with local leaders and emergency services. We'll do everything we can to keep the people safe." Joshua watched as Adaora left to carry out his orders. She had been his rock throughout this war, always there to support him and offer sage advice. He was grateful for her dedication and strength, especially now, when everything seemed to hang in the balance. Joshua turned back to the map of Lagos displayed on the command center's screen. The city was vast and sprawling, a complex urban environment that would be difficult to defend. But it was also their home, the economic heart of Nigeria, and a symbol of the nation's resilience. He couldn't let Kalu take it, not without a fight. "Call in all available reinforcements," Joshua ordered one of his senior military advisors. "We need to be ready to defend Lagos from every possible angle. If Kalu wants a fight, we'll give him one." Setting: Kalu's forward base, near Lagos. General Adisa Kalu stood on a ridge overlooking the city of Lagos as dawn began to break. The skyline was still shrouded in mist, but Kalu's mind was clear and focused. The time had come. After weeks of destabilization, sabotage, and psychological warfare, Kalu was ready to launch his final assault on the city. Olatunji, standing beside him, gave a brief report. "Our forces are in position, General. The sabotage operations have successfully disrupted power and communication lines in key areas. We've also identified several weak points in the city's defenses. With our forces and the chaos already brewing, we should be able to take the city quickly." Kalu nodded, his eyes never leaving the skyline. "Odum will fight back, but he's spread too thin. He's trying to protect the entire country while his capital crumbles around him. Lagos is vulnerable, and once we have it, Odum's legitimacy will be shattered." Olatunji hesitated, then asked the question that had been on his mind since Kalu first revealed the plan. "And what if Odum has anticipated this? He's proven to be a formidable opponent. If we underestimate him..." Kalu cut him off with a sharp glare. "We won't underestimate him. But this time, we have the advantage. Odum is on the defensive, trying to put out fires on every front. He can't protect Lagos and the rest of Nigeria at the same time. Once we take the city, the people will see him for what he truly is: weak, powerless, and unable to protect them. Olatunji nodded, though his unease remained. I'll give the order to begin the assault, General. Kalu turned to face him fully. No mercy, Olatunji. This is the final push. We take Lagos, and we take Nigeria. As Olatunji left to relay the orders, Kalu allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Everything he had done, every sacrifice he had made, was about to pay off. Lagos would fall, and with it, the last remnants of resistance against him. Setting. The streets of Lagos. The sun had barely risen when the first explosions rocked the city. Kalu's forces, heavily armed and well prepared, began their assault on Lagos from multiple directions. Tanks rolled through the streets, and soldiers stormed key buildings, engaging in fierce firefights with the defenders. Despite the chaos, the defenders, bolstered by reinforcements, held the ground. Major Nnamdi Okoye, who had been reassigned to lead the defense of Lagos, coordinated the resistance with precision. He knew the city's streets and alleys well, using them to launch ambushes and counterattacks against the invaders. Lagos won't fall today, Okoye muttered to himself as he directed his troops to set up a defensive line along a major thoroughfare. Not while I'm still breathing. The battle quickly became a brutal, drawn-out conflict, with both sides sustaining heavy casualties. Buildings crumbled under the relentless barrage of artillery, and the streets ran with the blood of soldiers and civilians alike. Kalu's forces were determined, but so were the defenders, who fought not just for victory, but for their home. Throughout the city, the people of Lagos refused to succumb to fear. Community leaders and ordinary citizens worked tirelessly to support the defenders, setting up makeshift clinics for the wounded and organizing supply runs to keep the resistance fighters stocked with food and ammunition. As the battle raged on, Joshua's voice rang out over the radio waves, urging the people to stand firm and not lose hope. To the people of Lagos, Joshua's voice echoed across the city. I know you are afraid. I know you are tired. But this is our home, our city. We cannot let those who seek to tear us apart succeed. Together, we will stand strong. Together, we will fight for the future of Nigeria. The message resonated deeply with the people, igniting a fierce resolve to protect their city. But even as Joshua's words inspired hope, the reality on the ground was grim. Kalu's forces were relentless, and the city's defenses were beginning to buckle under the strain. Setting. The presidential villa, Abuja. Joshua paced the command center, his mind racing as reports from Lagos continued to pour in. The situation was dire. Kalu's assault was more intense than he had anticipated, and the defenders were struggling to hold the line. The thought of losing Lagos was unbearable, but Joshua knew that they were reaching a critical point. Adorora, Joshua said, turning to his most trusted advisor, we need to escalate our response. If Lagos falls, everything we've fought for will be lost. Adorora, who had been working tirelessly to coordinate the defense, nodded. We've already deployed additional reinforcements, but we need to do more. We could call in airstrikes on key enemy positions, but that risks significant collateral damage. Joshua knew that collateral damage was a risk they couldn't take lightly. The people of Lagos were already suffering enough, and an airstrike could turn public opinion against them. But they were running out of options. We need to target Kalu's command and control centers, Joshua said after a moment of thought. If we can disrupt his ability to coordinate the assault, we might be able to turn the tide. Focus on precision strikes. Minimize civilian casualties as much as possible. Adorora quickly relayed the orders, coordinating with their military commanders to identify Kalu's key positions in and around Lagos. The stakes had never been higher, and every decision carried enormous weight. Joshua watched as the operation unfolded, his heart heavy with the knowledge that this battle could determine the fate of an entire nation. He had faced many challenges throughout this war, but this was different. Lagos was more than just a city. It was a symbol of everything they were fighting for. Please, Joshua whispered, his voice filled with quiet desperation. Please let this be enough. Setting: Kalu's command center, Lagos outskirts. General Kalu watched the battle unfold from his command center on the outskirts of Lagos, his expression a mix of satisfaction and frustration. His forces had made significant gains, but the defenders were putting up far more resistance than he had expected. The city was turning into a quagmire, and every inch of ground was being paid for with blood. General, we've detected enemy aircraft approaching, Olatunji reported, his tone urgent. They're targeting our command and control centers. We need to move now. Kalu's eyes narrowed. Odum is getting desperate. He knows he's losing, so he's trying to cut off our head. But he won't succeed. Move our command center to the secondary location. Keep the assault on Lagos going. We're too close to victory to back down now. Olatunji quickly relayed the orders, and the command center began to mobilize, preparing to relocate to a more secure position. But even as they moved, the first explosions from the airstrikes began to shake the ground, sending shockwaves through the compound. Go, go, Kalu shouted, urging his men to move faster. The airstrikes were coming closer, each one hitting with deadly precision. Kalu knew that if they didn't move quickly, they could lose their ability to coordinate the assault, and with it, any hope of taking Lagos. As they raced to the secondary location, Kalu felt a surge of anger and determination. Odum had come closer than ever to defeating him, but Kalu refused to let that happen. He had risked everything on this assault, and he was determined to see it through. Lagos will be mine, Kalu muttered through gritted teeth. No matter the cost. Setting: the streets of Lagos. Back in Lagos, the defenders were struggling to hold the ground. The airstrikes had disrupted Kalu's forces, but the battle was far from over. The streets of Lagos had become a war zone, with explosions echoing through the city and the sound of gunfire never far away. The defenders, led by Major Okoye, were fighting with everything they had, but the relentless assault by Kalu's forces was taking its toll. Okoye ducked behind a crumbling wall, narrowly avoiding a burst of gunfire from an enemy soldier. The city around him was in ruins, buildings reduced to rubble, and the air thick with smoke. Despite the chaos, Okoye remained focused, his mind racing as he tried to coordinate the defense. Hold the line, Okoye shouted into his radio, his voice hoarse from shouting orders. We can't let them push us any further. The defenders, though exhausted and outnumbered, responded with a renewed determination. They knew that this was their last stand, and they were not willing to let Lagos fall without a fight. The battle was fierce, with street-by-street combat turning every block into a battleground. But even as they fought back, Okoye knew that they were reaching the limits of their endurance. The enemy was closing in, and the reinforcements Joshua had sent were still fighting to reach the city center. In the midst of the battle, Okoye received a message from one of his scouts. Major, we've located Kalu's secondary command post. It's heavily guarded, but if we can take it out, we could disrupt their entire operation. Okoye's mind raced as he considered the implications. Taking out Kalu's command post could turn the tide of the battle, but it was a risky move. The post was deep within enemy territory, and any attempt to reach it would be fraught with danger. Send me the coordinates, Okoye replied. I'll lead a team myself. If we can take Kalu out, this fight might finally be over. As he received the coordinates, Okoye quickly assembled a small team of his best soldiers. They knew the risks, but they also knew that this could be their only chance to stop Kalu and save Lagos. Stay sharp, Okoye said to his team as they prepared to move out. We're going deep into enemy territory, and we won't have backup. But if we succeed, we can end this. With that, the team set off, moving quickly and silently through the war-torn streets of Lagos. The city around them was in chaos, But Okoye's focus was unshakable. He knew that this mission could be the key to victory, or the doom. Setting: Kalu's secondary command post, Lagos. General Adisa Kalu stood in his new command post, his frustration mounting as reports of the battle continued to come in. The airstrikes had forced him to relocate, and the disruption had cost him precious time. But despite the setbacks, he was determined to press on. Lagos was within his grasp, and he would not let Odum snatch victory away from him now. General, we've detected enemy forces moving toward our position, Olatunji reported, his voice tense. They're trying to take out our command post. Kalu's eyes narrowed. Odum's getting desperate. He knows that if he can't stop us here, it's over for him. Prepare the defenses. We'll crush this attack and then finish the job. Olatunji quickly relayed the orders, and the command post was soon a hive of activity as soldiers prepared for the incoming assault. Kalu knew that this was a critical moment. If he could hold off this attack, Lagos would fall, and with it, Joshua Odum's entire campaign. But even as his forces prepared to defend the command post, Kalu couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was slipping out of his control. The longer the fight dragged on, the more unpredictable it became. He needed to end this quickly, before Odum found a way to turn the tide. Hold your ground, Kalu ordered, his voice cold and determined. This ends here. Setting: the streets of Lagos. Major Okoye and his team moved swiftly through the streets, navigating through the rubble and debris that had once been a vibrant city. The sound of battle was all around them, but they kept to the shadows, avoiding direct confrontations as they made their way toward Kalu's command post. Okoye knew that time was of the essence. The longer they took, the more entrenched Kalu's forces would become. But he also knew that one misstep could cost them everything. They needed to be fast and precise, striking before Kalu could fully fortify his position. As they approached the command post, Okoye signaled for his team to halt. They crouched behind a low wall, peering over the edge to get a glimpse of the enemy's defenses. The post was heavily guarded, with soldiers stationed at every entrance and snipers positioned on nearby rooftops. It's going to be tough to get in, one of Okoye's soldiers whispered. They've got every angle covered. Okoye nodded, his mind racing as he formulated a plan. We'll split into two teams. Team 1 will create a diversion on the east side, drawing their attention away from the main entrance. Team 2 will move in from the west and breach the command post. Once we're inside, we take out Kalu and disrupt their operations. The team quickly divided, each group understanding their role in the operation. Okoye led Team 2, moving silently toward the western side of the command post while Team 1 prepared to create the diversion. Moments later, the sound of gunfire erupted from the east as Team 1 engaged the enemy, drawing their attention and pulling guards away from the western entrance. It was the opening Okoye needed. Now, Okoye whispered, and his team moved in, taking out the remaining guards with swift precision. They breached the entrance, moving through the building with practiced efficiency, clearing rooms and corridors as they went. As they neared the central command room, Okoye could feel the tension mounting. They were close, so close to ending the nightmare that Kalu had unleashed on Nigeria. But they had to be careful. Kalu was a dangerous man, and he wouldn't go down without a fight. Prepare to breach, Okoye ordered as they reached the door to the command room. The soldiers readied their weapons, nodding to each other in silent understanding. With a swift motion, Okoye kicked open the door, and the team surged into the room, weapons drawn. The scene inside was chaotic. Kalu's officers scrambled to respond to the sudden intrusion, but it was too late. Okoye's team moved with deadly efficiency, taking down the guards and securing the room. And there, at the center of the chaos, stood General Kalu, his eyes wide with shock and fury as he realized that his command post had been breached. You. Kalu spat, his voice dripping with venom as he locked eyes with Okoye. You think you can stop me? You're nothing. This war isn't over, not by a long shot. It is for you, Kalu, Okoye replied, his voice calm and steady. It ends here. Kalu reached for his weapon, but Okoye was faster. A single shot rang out, and Kalu staggered back, clutching his chest as he crumpled to the ground. The once mighty general, who had brought so much pain and suffering to Nigeria, lay dying at Okoye's feet. For a moment, there was silence in the room, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. Kalu, the architect of so much destruction, was finally defeated. It's over, Okoye said softly, his voice filled with both relief and sorrow. It's finally over. But even as he spoke, Okoye knew that the battle for Lagos was still raging outside. Kalu's forces were still fighting, unaware that their leader had fallen. The war wasn't truly over yet. Secure the area, Okoye ordered his team. We need to let our forces know that Kalu is down. This battle needs to end before more lives are lost. As Okoye moved to secure the command post, he couldn't help but think of Joshua Odum and the difficult road that lay ahead. The war had taken a heavy toll on everyone, and the challenges of rebuilding would be immense. But with Kalu gone, there was finally a glimmer of hope, a chance for Nigeria to heal and move forward. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. Joshua Odum sat in the command center, his heart pounding as he waited for news from Lagos. The battle had reached a critical point, and every minute felt like an eternity. The tension in the room was palpable, with everyone on edge as they monitored the situation. Then, the message came through. Joshua, we've just received word from Major Okoye, Adaora said, her voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and relief. Kalu has been taken down. The command post has been secured. Joshua felt a wave of emotion wash over him, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and overwhelming gratitude. Kalu, the man who had terrorized Nigeria for so long, was finally defeated. The war, at least this part of it, was coming to an end. Thank God, Joshua whispered, his voice thick with emotion. It's over. It's finally over. But even as he spoke, Joshua knew that the work was far from finished. The battle for Lagos was still ongoing, and the country was in ruins. There would be no easy path to recovery, no quick fix for the wounds that had been inflicted. We need to end the fighting in Lagos, Joshua said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. Send out the message to all.